It starts like all nights of European theater do, with noise, nerves, and 90,000 hearts thumping to the drum of possibility. And in the Bernabeu, no less, the Colosseum where miracles are not just born, they're manufactured in bulk. The banners ripple, the anthem soars, and yet it begins with a whisper rather than a roar. Because even before a ball is kicked, there's this electricity, this lingering dread, if you're wearing red and white. The whispers of La Remontada have not just haunted the lead-up, they've stalked it. But Arsenal, this version of Arsenal, they are not wide-eyed schoolboys on a European away day. They're streetwise. They're composed. They walk into the Dragon's Den with fireproof boots and a playbook that's been drafted in ice. Now, it wasn't instant control. The first few minutes were chaotic in that way only knockout football can be. Vinicius already peeling off timber, Mbappe already ghosting between shadows, Real Madrid throwing haymakers without even planting their feet. But Arsenal held, didn't they? Not panicked, not stretched, just quietly absorbing pressure as if daring Madrid to throw more. And then comes the first spark. Not a goal, but something more frustrating. A penalty. Arsenal win one. It's a messy sequence, Asensio grabbing a bit too much jersey like a desperate kid at the playground. VAR does its usual interpretive dance and eventually, the referee agrees. Spot kick. It's Bukayo Saka stepping up, shoulders square, heart probably doing cartwheels. And then, disaster. A soft, tragic attempt at a Panenka, as if he wanted to write poetry in the middle of a knife fight. Courtois barely even has to leap. He just plucks it from the air like an insult. Suddenly, the ghost of Euro 2020 rears its head in the worst possible way. And here's the thing. You could feel the shift. Not in the score, but in the ground, in the tension. Madrid grew teeth. The crowd found voice. And then, not even 10 minutes later, the Bernabeu thinks it has its own penalty. Mbappe goes down like a sack of regret under a light Rice challenge. Again, we do the dance. The referee points. The camera zooms in on Rice, incredulous, raging. He knows, and for once, so does video assistant referee. Decision overturned. Still 0-0. And yet again, the rhythm resets. What strikes you at this point isn't Madrid's threat. It's Arsenal's nerve. This is a team who are not just surviving this cauldron, they're writing their own tempo inside it. Saka responds to his miss like the best players do. He tries to make amends immediately. That battle with Alaba, a one-sided affair. The Austrian gets himself booked for a wild tackle. Saka keeps dancing. He tests Courtois again with a low strike. Arsenal keep threading passes between white shirts like it's a training session. Martinelli gets his own shot off. Partey and Marino quietly running the engine room while Rice just exists everywhere at once. Odegaard, though a little wayward at times, starts dropping deep, linking beautifully. Madrid, for all their pedigree, feel curiously limp. Their expected goals by halftime? 0.11. That's not just tame, it's toothless. This team, kings of the dramatic late charge, look confused. It's like they've opened the wrong script and lost their place. The tension spikes again when Madrid almost catch a break. A scuffle in the box. The referee thinks he's seen something. Rice again the villain in white eyes. But no, it's all reversed. 5 minutes wasted, more fury poured into the night. But the scoreboard, that cold impartial witness, still reads 0-0. The half ends and here's the question. Is this Arsenal being brave or Madrid being timid? Maybe both. But the bigger story is control, not possession, control of emotion, control of chaos. The kind of control that wins not just games, but ties. You head into that dressing room if you're Arsenal and you tell yourself, we didn't even need to be perfect, we just needed to be brave. And for 45 minutes, they were. This was the first act in a play that dared to stretch across continents and decades of disappointment. But if you were watching closely, really watching, you'd have seen the real twist beginning to simmer. Because the real story of the first half? It's not the missed penalty. It's not even the overturned one. It's that Arsenal looked like the grown-ups in Madrid's house. And that is a sentence I never thought I'd say. The second half kicks off, and the Bernabeu is still humming with all that pent-up fury from the first. You get the sense the Madrid faithful are trying to will something into existence. They're stomping, clapping, throwing glances toward the heavens as if the ghosts of Champions Leagues past might lace up and sort things out. But the game doesn't care about nostalgia. It never has. Madrid start with that same limp pulse they ended the first half with. A half-hearted cross here, a hopeful long ball there, If this was the great Madrid comeback machine revving up, someone forgot to plug it in. Their tempo is pedestrian. And pedestrian doesn't cut it in Europe. Arsenal, meanwhile, start to play like a side who realize they can hurt them. Really hurt them. And the beautiful thing? They don't panic. They don't rush. They wait. And then they strike. The goal that finally breaks the deadlock on the night is not just pretty. It's stunning. It's a symphony. A choreographed piece of arrogance, precision, and sheer belief. It starts with Saka. Of course it does. The boy who missed the penalty says, "Fine, then let me remind you who I am." He flicks it to Odegaard. He doesn't dwell. It's 1-2. It's Merino. It's Rice. It's movement. And then, that final pass. Merino slides it through and Saka, like a whisper through chaos, clips it over Courtois. Calm. Like he's in his garden on a Tuesday. 1-0 on the night. 4-0 on aggregate. And the Bernabeu dies a little. But this is Madrid. And Madrid don't go quietly. They've got this nasty habit of waking up the moment you feel safe around them. And wouldn't you know it, 2 minutes later, the script flings itself back off the shelf. William Saliba, so imperious all season, decides to gift-wrap Madrid a goal with all the enthusiasm of a man throwing his phone into the sea. He dallies, Vinicius pounces, Raya's caught in no man's land, and the ball trickles into the net like an accident. Suddenly, it's 1-1, 4-1. But worse than the score is the whisper that slinks into the air. Could they? Could Madrid do it again? And here's where this Arsenal side shows its true colors. They don't crumble. They don't panic. They absorb that punch. And then they punch back. What happens next is what separates sides that dream from sides that believe. Madrid throw on everything. Modric, Endrick, Brahim Diaz, even the spirit of Alfredo Di Stefano, probably. But none of it matters. Timber, who has been Vinicius' shadow all night, continues to make it his personal mission to erase the Brazilian from this game. Rice is eating space like a vacuum, intercepting, pressing, setting the tone. You can see Madrid players start looking at each other, searching for answers in each other's eyes, and only finding more questions. Mbappe, allegedly the future of this club, is drifting like a ghost. He rolls his ankle, shrugs, and is hauled off. There's no second wind, there's just confusion. And then, when the moment comes, it's pure theater. 89th minute. Madrid are throwing themselves forward like lemmings. Arsenal spring. Merino again. Because apparently he's decided to write poetry tonight, releases Martinelli. The Brazilian doesn't check his stride, doesn't flinch. He gallops, devours the pitch, eyes on the target. Courtois rushes. Too late. Martinelli slides it home and stands in front of a Bernabeu that has seen it all. Except this. 2-1 on the night. 5-1 on aggregate. Say it again if you have to. It's not a dream. It's a demolition. The final whistle goes and the Arsenal bench floods the pitch. Not because of the score, not just because of the semifinal ticket to Paris, but because of how they got there. Composed, mature, ruthless. Madrid, for all their mythology, were reduced to a collection of frustrated stares and impotent possession. Arsenal didn't just beat them. They made them look ordinary. That's a different kind of win. That's a message. You don't do this to Real Madrid in their house, unless you mean it. And Arsenal meant it. Let's talk about the war, not just the weapons. The dance, not just the dancers. Because while individual brilliance catches your eye, it's the collective heartbeats that carry a team through nights like this. And what a contrast these two sides offered under the spotlight of Europe. Real Madrid. A name heavy with history, bloated with trophies. 15 European titles. A cathedral of comebacks. A club that doesn't lose, it lingers, it lurks, it haunts. But on this night, on this particular night, they were not ghosts. They were shadows. And not even the threatening kind. They were fading, shapeless figures chasing the echo of their own legend. You kept waiting, didn't you? Waiting for the siege. For that 10-minute onslaught where Vinicius turns into a glitch in the Matrix, where Modric starts bending space-time, where the crossbar rattles and the Bernabeu bellows something ancient into the void. But that spell never came. Madrid, for all their galaxy of stars, looked like a team without a map. Their midfield, allegedly their fortress, was bypassed, their defense cracked by simple precision, their attack isolated like distant relatives at a wedding. Mbappe spent most of the night doing interpretive walks in wide channels. Vinicius was swallowed whole by Timber. Rodrigo kept asking questions nobody was answering. And even when Arsenal gave them a gift, a bow-tied, gold-embossed gift from Saliba, they didn't build on it. No roar, no response, just a stumble and a shrug. Contrast that with Arsenal, a club whose history in this tournament has been, let's be generous and say, haunted by trauma. But this wasn't a side burdened by the ghosts of Thierry Henry's missed chances or the heartbreak of Paris. This was a new beast entirely. The word that comes to mind is clarity. They had clarity of structure, clarity of roles, clarity of belief. Everything clicked, not because of luck, but because of preparation, trust, and dare I say, personality. They defended like zealots. Saliba had one horrendous moment, yes, but aside from that, he and Kiwior formed a wall that barely blinked. Timber was essentially a one-man force field. Partey and Rice didn't just win the midfield battle, they claimed it like colonists and planted a flag in it. And that front four? Fluid, fearless, utterly synchronized. Martinelli played like he'd stolen his power from the gods. Saka had his penalty miss, yes, but how did he respond? He decided to roast Madrid's entire left flank for fun. Odegaard, even when slightly off rhythm, kept stitching play together with silk and steel. And Marino. Where did that come from? Like a third conductor on a two-man orchestra, just flicking strings and pulling tempo from nowhere. What struck you wasn't just the football. It was the personality of the football. Arsenal didn't just come here to win. They came to own the narrative, to strangle the script and write a new one. Now yes, Madrid were poor, shockingly so. Courtois was their best player, and that tells you everything. Rudiger looked like he was playing a different sport. The midfield of Valverde and Tchouaméni never imposed themselves. Even Jude Bellingham, for all the hype, for all the muscle and menace, was quiet. Too quiet. But here's the truth. Arsenal made them look like that. You don't reduce Real Madrid to ash by accident. You do it by showing up with a system and a soul. You do it by playing football with your chest out and your chin up. You do it by being brave when they expect you to be scared. And somewhere in the cold logic of expected goals and possession charts and pass completions, there's a warm truth. Arsenal felt like a team. Madrid felt like a brand. And on nights like this, the team wins. Let's slow the reel down, frame by frame, and talk about the characters in this wild little drama. Because this wasn't just tactics. This wasn't just shape or systems or scribbled chalkboards. This was a night sculpted by individuals, some who soared, some who vanished, and some who gave us the full spectrum of football's ridiculous, romantic, and ruinous nature. Let's just start with him, the man who walked into the Bernabeu and turned it into his private amphitheater. Declan Rice. My God. I don't know what molecular structure this man is composed of, but it's definitely not human. It's something forged in the center of stars and sprinkled with the dust of midfielders past. Because Rice didn't just play midfield, he consumed it. He was everywhere, literally. One moment intercepting on the edge of his own box, the next threading passes 30 yards upfield, the next blocking a free kick like it owed him money. He read the game like he authored it. If you put a stethoscope to the tempo of this match, it would sound like his heartbeat. It takes something rare to walk into Madrid's midfield and make it feel like a provincial park. Rice did that, with grace, with power, with a certain unbothered cruelty. He was, without hesitation, the best player on the pitch. But football is not a one-man opera, so let's take a bow for Bukayo Saka. Yes, the penalty miss. It was awkward, it was unnecessary, it was weirdly teenage. A soft little Panenka that Courtois treated like a minor inconvenience. But what came after? That's where you saw the man behind the boy. He didn't sulk. He didn't shrink. He turned the dial up. Every time he got the ball after that, he looked like he had something to prove. Not to the crowd, not to the coach, but to himself. And when the goal finally came, the movement, the timing, the ice-cold finish over Courtois, it felt like emotional redemption in real time. Like he ripped up the first page of the story and wrote his own ending. Gabriel Martinelli deserves his own paragraph too. Not because he was flashy all game, but because when the moment came, he did what killers do. He smelled blood. That last gasp goal was all pace, all composure, all cold-blooded precision. Sprinting 70 yards into a cauldron of pressure and sliding it under Courtois like it was a preseason friendly. That's what separates the good from the ruthless. And then you've got Jurrien Timber, A man who was presumably handed a dossier titled How to Deal with Vinicius Jr. and then ate it for breakfast. He didn't just mark him, he erased him. Every time Vinicius tried to accelerate, Timber was already there. A shadow. A ghost. A force field wrapped in muscle and calculation. It takes something special to silence Vinicius over 90 minutes. Timber managed it with eerie calm. Now let's address the only blot on Arsenal's otherwise divine copybook. William Saliba. Oh dear, you don't get to have a howler like that and pretend the world didn't see it. One lapse, one slow, confused, slightly too casual moment, and boom, Madrid score. Raya stranded, Saliba looking like a man who just forgot his own address. But credit where it's due. He didn't collapse. He recovered. He refocused, which is more than most defenders can say after being publicly pantsed by Vinicius. Speaking of Raya, quiet night. Almost too quiet. But when called upon, he did his job. Not glamorous, not headline-grabbing, just solid. That's all Arsenal needed. Martin Odegaard had one of those nights where his feet and his brain weren't always synced, some sloppy passes, a few misread options. But again, he kept moving, kept probing, kept being that connective tissue. He didn't hide. That matters more than people think. And then there was Marino. Oh, sweet hipster heaven. This guy looked like he'd been brewing in a tactical lab for nights like this. 2 assists. One a shimmering ball for Saka, one a razor-sharp release for Martinelli. He played like a man possessed. The kind of game where the football hipster Twitter accounts start making highlight reels at 2 in the morning. Now let's glance briefly at Real Madrid's individual offerings. Thibaut Courtois, heroic, doomed, exhausted, saved a penalty, made key stops, and still conceded twice. You could see it in his body language by the end. Why am I the only one doing anything? The man deserves a week in the mountains. Antonio Rudiger, a horror show in installments. Physically dominant as always, but positionally chaotic. Fouled when he didn't need to, backed off when he shouldn't have. The emotional embodiment of Tchouaméni and Valverde, missing persons, occasionally appeared in the background like extras in a film they didn't realize they were in. Jude Bellingham, he looked tired, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, tried a few things, got kicked a few times, faded. Not much else to say. And Mbappe, oh dear. The man they thought would be the talisman, the wrecking ball. He spent more time drifting out of frame than in it. That ankle roll felt metaphorical. A star collapsing under its own expectations. So here we are. On the other side of a night where individuals told the story more than stats ever could. Arsenal didn't just win with talent, they won with accountability. Madrid didn't just lose on tactics, they lost on personality. And that, my friends, is what football does best. It strips away the noise and shows you the character underneath. This has been Across the Pitch. Over and out.